happened when I was in my 20s. I'm 36 now. I was sitting at this bar, just waiting for my friend to show up. It was supposed to be a casual night, just catching up over a drink. I got there a bit early, ordered a beer, and started scrolling through my phone. The place wasn't too busy, just the usual crowd. I noticed a guy at the end of the bar who seemed to be looking in my direction, but I didn't think much of it. People look at each other in bars, right? No big deal. Time passed, and my friend texted me that something came up and they couldn't make it. I finished my beer, feeling a bit annoyed but not wanting to waste the night. So, I decided to walk home. It wasn't that late, maybe around 10 p.m., and the walk wasn't far. Plus, the night air felt good after being inside. As I was walking, it felt weird, like someone was behind me. You know that uneasy feeling like you're being watched? I glanced over my shoulder a couple of times, but no one was there. The streets were mostly empty, just the occasional car driving by. But that feeling didn't go away. I tried to brush it off as me just being paranoid. I turned down my street, and that's when I heard footsteps behind me. They weren't fast, just steady, like someone was keeping their distance. I started walking faster, but the footsteps matched my pace. My heart was pounding now. I reached my house, fumbling with my keys, trying to stay calm. I didn't want to make it obvious that I was freaked out. Finally, I got the door open, rushed inside, and locked it behind me. I stood there for a moment, trying to catch my breath, telling myself I was just overreacting. But then I heard it, the sound of someone trying the doorknob. I froze. There was no mistaking it. Someone was out there, trying to get in. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the cops, but before I could, I heard a loud crash. The window by the door shattered. A man climbed through the broken window, and I recognized him immediately. It was the guy from the bar. I backed away, but he was on me in seconds. He had a knife. I don't know how he found me, or why he was doing this, but I didn't have time to think. He forced me upstairs into my bedroom. I was terrified, begging him to take whatever he wanted and leave, but he wasn't interested in robbing me. He wanted to hurt me. He tied me up, gagged me, and started torturing me. I can't even describe the pain. It was like he enjoyed it, taking his time, making sure I was in as much agony as possible. I thought I was going to die. The whole time, I kept praying that my roommate, who was asleep in the other room, wouldn't wake up. I didn't want him to get hurt too. But then, out of nowhere, I heard a noise from the hallway. My roommate had woken up. He must have heard me scream, even through the gag. The intruder froze, clearly startled. I could see the panic in his eyes. He wasn't expecting anyone else to be here. My roommate burst into the room, and the guy bolted. He punched my roommate in the face, ran down the stairs, and jumped out the same window he came in through, running off into the night. My roommate untied me and called the cops, but by the time they got there, the guy was long gone. They never caught him. I don't know what would have happened if my roommate hadn't woken up when he did. I still can't sleep at night, knowing that guy is out there somewhere, knowing what he did to me. It's something I'll never forget. This happened last October. My friend and I were hanging out on a Friday night. She had some weed, so we were just having a fun night, laughing at the stupidest shit. All of a sudden, she got super serious. "How many floors does your building have?" she asked. "I don't know, 15, I think. Why?" I responded. "Perfect," she whispered. She starts telling me about this old urban legend called the elevator game. It's where you take the elevator to certain floors in a certain order, follow some basic rules, and then you get warp zoned into some third world dimension, and everyone who follows the steps ends up missing. Crazy, right? "That is such bullshit. No way that happens," I said. We both started laughing, but she grabbed my arm and said, "Let's go try it." I didn't believe in this shit, but I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified to go try it, especially now after smoking that weed. We made our way down to the lobby. It was late, very dark, and seemed kind of deserted down there. which was odd because my building was usually filled with people going in and out, even in the late hours of the night. "Here goes," I said. We got on the elevator and started the process. We got through the first steps and made it to the fourth step, which was going up to the 10th floor, where you're supposed to hear some whispering but not acknowledge it. The door opened. Standing there was some creep. He got on the elevator with us. Didn't say a word, he just stared at us with a blank expression. He pressed the button to go to the 5th floor, which was actually the next step in the game, so we both got super freaked out. Had to be a coincidence, we thought. We get to floor 5 and the door opens. He extends his arm to block the door from closing.
"Time for you to get off,"
he said. We looked at each other and nodded. We got out. He stood there for what seemed like an hour holding that door open, before he smiled and stepped back inside and watched the door close on us. Okay, that's enough. I'm done," my friend said. "That shit was way too creepy." I agreed. We went to the other end of the floor to use the other elevator, but it was out of service. So, the stairs it was. We only had to go up a few floors, but as we're in the stairwell, the lights go out, and we hear a door below us slam shut. Now there's footsteps coming up the stairs, and they're coming fast. I fumbled to find my phone, but I managed to flip on the flashlight. All we could see was a figure coming up the stairs. We tried the next floor exit. It was locked. Went up another floor, locked again. Every exit from the stairs was locked. We were trapped and scared shitless. Whoever was in there was getting closer and closer, and we had nowhere to run or hide. The figure stopped about a half a floor under us.
"You're both going to die,"
they said, then started laughing, which echoed through the stairwell. We knew we had no choice but to try and run past whoever was down there. We took a deep breath and bolted it down the stairs. My friend ran into the figure, knocking them over. I don't think they were expecting that. We were basically jumping from landing to landing to try and get to the bottom as fast as we could. We got to the 1st floor, door still locked. Then we heard a big bang. Sounded like a gunshot. The lights came back on, and the door unlocked. We ran into the lobby and told the guard to call the police. When the police arrived, they took our story and went to investigate the stairwell. Moments later, they came out and told us there was a deceased man up there. It appeared he had taken his own life. We were in complete shock. No way this just happened. A few days went by and we found out that the man they found up there, he was a missing person from the area. He had been missing for 2 years, last seen exiting the 5th floor on that same elevator that he got on with us. I've since relocated to a single-story apartment building. I'll never use an elevator or stairwell again, and I'll never ever agree to play any type of urban legend game again. I never thought something like this could happen to me. It sounds like the kind of thing you hear about on the news, but you never think it's going to happen to you or someone you know. This happened about a year ago. My friend Mark and I were just hanging out at my apartment. We were both single at the time, and since we lived in the same building, it was easy for us to chill together, watch movies, play video games, you know, the usual stuff. I lived on the 8th floor, and he was on the 11th. The building was one of those older high-rise ones, not super fancy or anything, but it had a decent view and was pretty quiet most of the time. We were just chilling, watching some classic horror movies. It was getting late, and Mark decided he should head back to his place. He didn't want to crash at my place that night for some reason, though I told him he could. Anyway, after the movie ended, he got up, grabbed his jacket, and headed out the door. I was about to lock the door behind him when I heard him yell. It wasn't a normal yell. It was more like a scream, one of those blood-curdling screams that you don't forget. My heart jumped into my throat. I ran out into the hallway, and that's when I saw this guy, who I'd never seen before, was on top of Mark, holding him down on the ground. He was beating the shit out of him, and Mark was struggling, but the guy was strong, way stronger than he looked. I didn't even have time to think. I just grabbed the bat by my door and ran out and started blasting the guy with it. The dude wasn't big, maybe mid-40s, average build, but he was vicious. When I knocked him off, he turned his attention to me, and that's when I noticed he had a knife. I freaked out and started backing up, but then Mark, who somehow managed to get up, grabbed the guy from behind. We struggled with him, and by some miracle, we managed to wrestle the knife away and hold him down. I was shaking so bad, I thought I was going to pass out. We were both yelling for help, and luckily one of my neighbors must have heard the commotion because they came out and called the cops. It felt like forever, but eventually they showed up and arrested the guy. Turns out he was a neighbor who lived on the 6th floor. After the cops took him away, Mark and I were in total shock. We just sat there in my apartment, not saying much, trying to process what had just happened. When the cops came back to take our statements, that's when they told us the creepy part. Apparently, this guy had been watching us for weeks, maybe even months. They found all this weird stuff in his apartment, photos of Mark and me, notes about our daily routines, even some of Mark's stuff that had gone missing from his apartment. It was like something out of a horror movie. The guy had planned the whole thing, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. The cops said it was pure luck that we managed to fight him off. After that night, Mark and I couldn't stay in the building anymore. It was too much. I moved out a couple of weeks later, and Mark did the same. We still hang out, but things aren't the same. There's always that fear in the back of my mind. Like, what if something like that happens again? I still can't believe how close we came to something much worse. If I hadn't gone after Mark, or if we hadn't been able to fight that guy off, who knows what could have happened. It's the kind of thing that makes you realize how quickly your life can change. Just like that. We both got lucky that night. But I'll never forget the look in that guy's eyes. I never want to feel that scared again.